Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Win the Hour, Win the Day. I am your host, Chris Ward, and today we have Robin Waite in the house. This is going to be all kinds of interesting. Robin is the pricing guy. He helps entrepreneurs slow down and create space and confidently charge your worth. Okay, that sounds interesting to me, Robin. Where do we start? And welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Chris. I'm super excited to be here today. And yeah, where do we start? Well, I'll leave that down to you. What questions do you have for me?
Okay, well, you know what? We just always assume, like, I don't even really, when you start your own business, you look at the ceiling and squint your eyes and say, oh, how much do I think I can get away with charging for this, right? And or sometimes it would maybe a worse mistake as you look at your competitors and what are you doing? Are you basing that on what are they doing? We don't know what they're doing well, or their experience, or their niche market, or anything. So where do you think we should be looking at? When do we know we have a problem? When do we know we could be charging differently? What is it we don't know?
Well, you're on the money, if you'll excuse the pun, like straight away, because the biggest mistake people make is they do look at their competition. And like the reality is, if you've got like five of your competitors out there charging like similar amounts, and so you decide, oh, well, that's what I'm going to charge because it works for them, it might work for me. Economically, when you look at it, in terms of the finances, it probably doesn't actually stack up for your business. So I actually go back like a step from that and suggest to people, well, actually what you need to do is look at your goals for your business. So let's say, for example, you wanted to earn $100,000 a year and your widgets that you sell are $1,000, or the service which you provide costs $1,000. And you divide the two between each other. Well, do you have the capacity to work with 100 clients? Could you support them? And so you'll either get the, hell yes, we can do that, absolutely, or we'll get the, whoa, no, that's 100 clients, that's just ridiculous. How do I get 100 clients? How do I service 100 clients? So we know at that point that $1,000 is not going to work. And so what you then need to do, let's say, for example, if your capacity is only, say, 20 clients, well, you need to be creating a product that where you can, the value is worth $5,000 or more. Otherwise, just economically, it's not going to stack up for your business. So we go goal focused first. We do a couple of very simple calculations, and then we start to sort of unpack it from there. And yes, we might look at our competition, but we don't. The mistake is assuming that they're doing it correctly, because invariably they're not. And the final thing as well is on looking at your competitors, you might have 20 people in your industry, in your local area, doing what you do, all charging various amounts, but there's only one of them that can be the most expensive. And my view is that typically when you look at the one who is the most expensive, they've normally got the most 5-star reviews on Google. They normally have tons of referrals from existing clients. They're normally the first person that somebody mentions locally when somebody says, hey, do you know a web designer? Oh, you should go and speak to these guys, but they're expensive. Then they're normally top of the pile, and they've been around for the longest. They've got the best reputation. But the clue is that they've been around for a long time. They've got the reviews. They're the most expensive. And yet they still get clients. So I'm kind of like, well, provided you've got the skills and you can get the desired outcomes and results for your clients, why should you not be the most expensive in your niche?
Okay. So you've given me a lot to think about. So right off the bat, I would say, I can't speak for all entrepreneurs. I'll say I would assume I started at the wrong end. And I would think most do, though, because most think, what can I charge? What do I think I'm worth? Versus you're saying it's a math problem. What do you need to bring in? Which kind of makes sense, because it's sort of like if when you first leave home, or you whatever, you say, okay, I'm gonna pay rent here. So how much do I have to make? How many hours, or what kind of job do I have to get? How many hours am I gonna how much am I going to get paid per hour at that job? How many hours do I put in to cover rent? So we work backwards in the early stages of our life. And that's what you're saying we should be doing as an entrepreneur. Like, okay, what's your financial goal? And then you make sure that you create a package or a service or something that fulfills that financial need.
100%. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'd like to say it's that simple, but this will be a really short podcast, Chris, if we go down that route. But like the reality is as well, like most service-based business owners. So if you're thinking about web designers, freelancers, consultants, and people like that, they will actually start off charging time for money, exactly like you've just said. It's the other way around. Rather than it being a job, well, they kind of create a job for themselves. So they
Right.
charge out of $50 an hour, or $100 an hour, or something
Yeah.
like that. Now, what I've also noticed, I mean, I've worked with hundreds of business owners and, looked at lots of different sort of studies around sort of, the average consultant typically works only 4 to 5 days a month. And you think if they're charging an hourly rate or day rate, they've got to earn all of their income in just 4 to 5 days work. Now, most consultants, when they work out their hourly rate, they work it out based on 20 days a month, which is or 21 and a half days, or however much it works out a month that they work for. So where did the other 15 days go? Like, what's that all about? Well, the reality is, like, most business owners still need to go to networking, do marketing, do sales meetings, write reports, do their accounts. Like, all of the other business functions still need to happen and wrap around the actual paid work to fulfillment.
Yes.
So when you think about it, it's not just about the time which that consultant or freelancer is selling. There's two other really major constituent parts which go into making up how much they should charge. So, and I it's a rule of three. So we have our hourly rate, our time. That's important. That needs to be paid for. The second one is intellectual property. The knowledge and schooling which they've accumulated over the years, the clients they've worked with, the mistakes they've made, all of those good things need to go into the intellectual property, the IP. And that adds another third to the cost that we need to be charging. And then the third part then, which wraps around that. So we've got the intellectual property, we've got the hours, but also we need to think about the overheads, the costs of it, to run our business. And that should be another third. So when you look at most people's hourly rates, in order to make their business prosperous and abundant, they probably need to increase their hourly rate by a factor of 3. And
Okay.
to a lot of people, that's very scary.
Yes. So, all right. I also, too, there's always a lot of pre and post work I talk about as well. We're very passionate about decreasing that for people. So, and I think you touched on a really important point. Like, I spend an insane amount over the years and still do on education and learning. And it's unbelievable. Like, I can't even say some of the numbers out loud, but what I would say to you is, then sometimes I think I'm not sure I'm articulating that well enough to my clients of, do you know what a discount, what I'm teaching right now, I paid so much more than you're paying me to learn. Like, I paid a lot to get that, to give that to you. Right. Yep. So I think we probably don't articulate that. But then if you say, all right, Chris, you should be increasing your numbers by 3. How do you know then when you go, all right, I have crossed over into insanity, and like, how do you recognize the signs of it's too much for the marketplace, or I'm not confident enough to sell it, or what's the warning signs?
As a good, again, rule of thumb, like a good conversion rate for a service client business is somewhere between about 1 in 5 and 1 in 3. So we'll round those numbers. We'll call it 20 to 40%. Okay. So when I speak to a lot of business owners, and I say, what's your conversion rate? They wear it like a badge of honor. My conversion rate's like 80, 90%. It's really good. I'm a really good salesperson. The first question I throw back to them is like, cool. So if we double your rate, because you're such a good salesperson, you could still keep that conversion rate the same. And they always go, oh no, couldn't possibly, that's ridiculous. Nobody will pay that much. So all of the core beliefs, the mindset and the confidence starts to come out and ooze out of their head. And it's all based around pricing and the money blueprint, which they inherited when they're younger, which we could probably go into a bit later if you want to, or not, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But so straight away we know that the conversion rate is a good, and by the way, the reason why it's 1 in 5 and 1 in 3, so Google did a really great white paper years ago, which they've updated several times now, based on their gazillion bits of data, that 3 really important numbers. So they worked out 70, 10, 2. Actually, it comes from the age old of like cold calling. 70 calls, 10 appointments, 2 sales. But they applied that principle to service client businesses and their conversion rates through their websites and through call booking systems and things like that, through data which they were collecting through various CRMs they've got access to. And they worked out actually for most modern businesses, 70, 10, 2 is still appropriate. So where it comes from, 70 conversations that we start leads to 10 consultations, which ultimately leads to 2 sales, 1 in 5, 10 to 2, 1 in 5 to 1 in 3 sales. And I always use that as a rough benchmark. So what we want to do is we want to increase our prices. So it artificially decreases our conversion rate down into that sweet spot. And now we've got like a barometer. So if we're still closing more than 1 in, that 1 in 3, well, we probably got bandwidth to increase our prices a little bit more. If we start to fall below 1 in 5, well, something's going wrong here. And maybe we are too expensive. Maybe we are pushing the pricing too much. But price has this bandwidth, and this is what most people don't see. So they will see, hey, I'm going to sell this widget for $1,000, and people put it in, they make it binary. It's either too cheap or it's too expensive. We can't afford it, or but that's just based on one person, one straw poll of one person. So, but bandwidth has, like, take something like coaching, for example. Well, coaching, the pricing bandwidth on coaching is free, i.e. YouTube, if you know what to search for, right the way up to somebody like Tony Robbins, who charges 7 figures a year to work one-to-one with a client. Most people, though, are in the lower end of the spectrum because their money blueprint tells them that they're not worth it. I am not worth it. Therefore, I'll put my prices in the cheaper end. So where things are really cheap, it's massively competitive. Okay, so imagine there's this, we've got the bandwidth from free to Tony Robbins, and we've got this line, which kind of this arc, which comes from, left to right down. The higher up you are up there, the more competition there is. So the more expensive you get, the less competition there is, because there's only really one Tony Robbins, unless he's got like a clone.
Okay. So let me jump in now. I have to tell you, full disclosure, there is like dyslexia for reading. I don't know what it is I have with math, but it's a medical condition. Okay. Once I have fingers and toes, and sometimes I can fudge and add those up, but lots of times I can't. So bear with me. Could people then argue, if you say the 70-10-2 rule, meaning 70 calls, 10 appointments, 2 sales, and you say, Chris, increase your prices because your conversions are too high, means you're charging too low.
Yeah.
Then could I say, but you know what? The amount of work it would take me to get those other 70 calls, it's more lucrative to have my prices being lower than to double my work and be increasing factors of 70.
Yeah. Well, here's something to ponder. So if you take on too many clients, it can actually be quite destructive in your business, because too many of something does quite often lead to problems starting to kind of erupt. So,
yes.
So think about it this way. Well, I'll give you an example. So again, apologies because there's more numbers involved, but hopefully. So
everybody out there can do math better than me. I assure you, I am at the bottom of the barrel. So if I don't get it, it's okay. They will. All right.
Good. Excellent. But there's a punchline to this story, actually. So when back in I used to run a marketing agency way back in the day, before I started the coaching practice. And so we used to do web design and branding. And one of the products which we used to do was like a follow-on product to the websites, website hosting. Okay. It's something which everybody buys and uses these days. Every service provider has a website. So we used to charge just £10 a month for our website support and hosting. This was 15 years ago. And that was competitive. That was what everybody else was charging. We hit the 2008 financial crisis, and all of our competition, it was like a race to the bottom. We need to go cheap to get all of the clients to secure money. Okay. And I thought, if everybody does that, nobody wins, because none of us, like, we're charging that. We're not making enough money here. It didn't make sense. So I trusted my intuition, had an argument with my business partner, because he was like, oh, I don't want to put the prices up. But we 5x'd our price of our hosting. So we went from £10 a month to £50 a month. So there was 3 really interesting things which happened here. The first and obvious one was we lost some clients because we were more expensive than the competition. So we lost, out of 120 clients, we lost 40% of them. Right. So about a third. So that was a bit of a disaster. My business partner did the international sign of distress several times.
Yeah. Hopping up and down on one foot. Okay. Yeah. And pointing aggressively at you. Okay.
That's it. Yeah. So we had a lot of that. But with pricing changes, there's about a 4 to 6 week lag. So before you start to see the upside of it. So after about 4 to 6 weeks, went over, did the accounts, and I was like, look at this, it's amazing. We'd gone up 2.5 times in revenue. So we lost a third of our clients, gone up 2.5 times in revenue. Okay. But, and here's the punchline. Okay. So this was the third benefit that we got. Our support calls dropped by 80% overnight.
Oh, yeah.
So the clients who didn't value the great work which we did, and we really prided ourselves on uptime and all the guarantees and making things as good as we possibly could do. The clients who didn't get that value, they left, and they took 80% of their bitching and moaning and problems.
Yes. No, that is true. I remember that in the really infancy stage of my business, and upping your prices and getting rid of, I can't think of a nicer thing to say, the riffraff and the people that all of a sudden you realize, oh, I think I'm paying them to work for them, right? Like this is the opposite. So you're right. Okay, that is fantastically interesting. Okay, and I followed the math, boys and girls, so we're doing really good. Okay,
Excellent.
another thing you talk about, which I'm in agreement on this, and I totally, although you did spin it differently than I had said before, I have never been a fan of an hourly rate. There's very few things that I would pay an hourly rate for, and I train people not to charge for an hourly rate, like my marketing clients or whatever, right? Because also, I guess to me, the scenario was I had a client who was a photographer, and she was doing a really important shoot, and it was outside. And what happened is it started to rain, and she wanted to do right by these clients and make sure that they got every single thing they wanted. So they stood under a tree for 20 minutes, and it's raining and it's misty, but she's having to carry on conversations. She's doing all this stuff. And, she's being engaged with them, and the summer rain, it was quite, fun and stuff. And then when the rain stopped, she went out and she got the extra shots she wanted, and she was the hero of the day. And that's great. But had she been charging an hourly rate instead of a project rate, she would have looked like she's just running the clock, right?
Yeah.
So it works against you. So I always think, that is a real problem. But you talked about, and I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, you'll expand on this, is that when you're charging somebody for an hourly rate, which is something I never thought about, you are paying more for inexperience.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you take something like, well, I use the analogy, like same from my background, web design, for example. So imagine you've got person number one comes along and they say, right, Chris, you're in the market for a website. I can build you a website. We get on okay. And you say yes. And what we agreed to is say 20 hours and to build this website, and I'm going to charge you $50 an hour. And you're like, okay, well, $1,000, that feels reasonable. Yeah. What this person forgot to tell you was that, they'd only just started. They don't really get great results. They haven't really got any commercial experience, but they have a good go at coding up this website. And because they've taken on too many clients at too low a rate now, because everybody's saying yes to them because they're cheaper than the competition, right? They don't show up with any work for 3 months. You're like, where's my website? And they not only that, but it hasn't got the blog or the shopping cart on it, which you asked for. And you're just like, this isn't great. So the person says, well, listen, Chris, I can add those on for you, definitely. But it's going to take another 10 hours and you've got to pay for it. I thought we'd agreed I was going to. So you can set straight away. I mean, most people are ethical, moral, upstanding human beings, and they wouldn't just bolt on another 10 hours and expect the client to pay for it. But even if they don't add it on, now you're annoyed, the supplier, the web designer is getting annoyed. It just doesn't add up, right?
Yeah.
So second person comes along, right? Emma, she's a website guru. She's been doing this for years. She doesn't know what Robin and Chris know about pricing though. So she's still charging hourly rate, but she knocks out this website in 3 days. It only takes her 10 hours of billable time. So it's only $500. So it's like, hang on, Emma's better. And yet she's getting paid a third of the price of this inexperienced, hack who took my money. Right.
Yeah.
So those are the first two, but there's a third guy, right? Okay. So Steve comes along. Website ninja. He's the best, right? He says, listen, I can turn this out for you this afternoon. I reckon in the first 30 days, we can get you up to producing 5 to 10 really solid leads a week for your business. What's that going to mean for you? Well, it means that if your average client's worth X, we can generate Y's worth of revenue. How does that sound? Right. And you're thinking, yeah, this sounds pretty kick-ass actually. And I'm in a hurry. I want to get this thing done. And then he says, afterwards, he says, listen, I know you're a bit worried because you've heard that I'm expensive, but one of the things I do is if I can't get you those leads in 30 days, I'll refund you all the money and I'll pay you $1,000 for wasting your time. You're like, hooked. That's right. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's confident. Chris, ask me how much this guy charges.
How much does he charge?
His website's a 10K.
Right.
Right. So he's 10 times the price of Emma and the other guy, the hack ripoff. But he's got those guarantees in place. He understands commercially what it means to have a website built that's going to generate leads for your business and grow it. And 10K may seem expensive, but hey, he's got this guarantee. So not only that, I'll earn $1,000 if he doesn't do what he says, and I can go and spend it with Emma, who was pretty good anyway.
Yeah. And you know what? You brought up a lot of really good points because I think of it from a consumer's point of view, but you brought it back again to us charging for our services. So, that's the end of the day is we're undercharging the more experience you get. But I've never liked the hourly thing too, because I also too, I don't care how good of a human being you are. At some point, it innately kicks in that you think, are they working as fast as they could be working? Like if they, if they're charging me by the hour, they're going to have a different momentum than if they're charging me by the project, right? And I
Yeah.
also think it just makes you feel safer as a consumer because you realize here's what it's cost. And the things that happen along the way, you're going to take care of because we've agreed upon the price, right? So that is really awesome. Okay, that is, yeah, lots of, I think what you do really well, Robin, is putting it from picking up maybe the same cube we've all been looking at, and you're turning it a different way. And you're like, oh, I thought it looked good from this way, but let's turn it around. Makes even more sense. Okay, two very powerful points you made there. What would be, what's another thing that you think we're constantly missing the boat on?
Well, I think I don't know, maybe this is a very British thing, but I think a lot of business owners, like entrepreneurs, like are genuinely like really decent human beings, and they get amazing results for their clients. They love what they do. They like deeply passionate about what they do. But the one thing which is holding them back is the fact that they're too humble. Like I actually think that really great entrepreneurs should be telling more people about what it is that they do.
I
And
know,
shout.
but let me jump in there. Here's the problem. I'm a marketer. That's my background, and I still do marketing, right? So I just don't put it out there because it gets a little confusing with the marketplace. We have marketing clients, but we're known for the win the hour, win the day platform and all that stuff. Because I really want to create a movement where your business supports your life instead of consuming it. But even as a marketer, marketing other people, I know how to do that. Yet something happens when it's about you, because like I see those coffee shops that will say world's greatest coffee, and you're like, I'm sure you're not, right? Because it's just you know what I mean, you're in a small town and it doesn't look like the world's greatest coffee. And it kind of reminds me, everyone told me, and I knew better when I wrote my book, When the Hour, When the Day. I know that you're supposed to be talking about this as you do it, and you're supposed to be getting people involved and getting people ready. And okay, I'm on chapter 2. Which cover do you think looks best? But the Chris, the me, was always like, hate I just like showing people what I did. I don't like saying what I'm going to do. Now, when I say I'm going to do something, I almost always do it. People that I told was going to write the book, I came back later and said, I wrote the book. And they said, I can't believe you did that. And I said, but I said I was going to write it. And they said, yes, everyone says that. Nobody does it. Right. So I mean, when I say what I do. Having said that, I just thought being out there on Facebook, tugging people's sleeves as they walk by and saying, I'm working on a book, right? I just wanted to show up and say, look what I did. It's done. Here it is, which is the worst marketing you could do because nobody knew anything about it. And then I had to really scramble. It was like trying to get the plane off the ground when it could have had a long runway and a great flight. And I had to scurry and make people aware. It was just upside down and backwards. And I just knew it, but I was digging in my toes. I just couldn't be online telling people what I'm working on. I still struggle on that. So it's not even like about being humble. I don't know. It's kind of like school. Well, like show me when the work is done. Don't tell me what you're going to do. Right. So I think that we all get stuck there at some point.
Well, I think it's because inherently, like we struggle to big ourselves up. It's much easier if I was to sit here and I could probably sell you better than I could sell me, Chris,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
easier to talk about somebody else when there's no
Yeah.
jeopardy involved in it. Okay.
Yeah.
When I start talking about myself, automatically there's jeopardy involved in that because, oh gosh,
Yeah.
what I might be saying something which maybe I don't feel 100% confident about myself in,
But
or
you don't
what.
want to brag.
Yeah,
It sounds
don't
like
brag.
it sounds like bragging, arrogance.
Absolutely. So, but there is
Yeah.
a workaround for that. So, what do? We
Okay.
ask other people to say how good we are,
Yes.
and then we
Yes.
use that, like those marketing assets. So, I talk about
Yeah.
like social proof case studies, reviews,
Yeah.
testimonials, which are
Yeah.
gathered from your raving fans, your loyal customers who really love what you do, and you can feed them some questions to make sure that there's an objective behind it as well. But now you've got your marketing assets that you can then put out into the world and say, hey, look at what Chris says about me. This is
Yeah.
and that works. It's so much more powerful that way because you've got somebody else kind of bigging you up.
Yeah, and I still underutilize them. I get some raving reviews, and every once in a while I throw them up, but I tend to like they should be in a routine. They should be on a schedule. We should be doing that on a regular thing, right? I'm writing that down now. I keep forgetting. I go, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that more, and then I don't. So all right. Sometimes you forget. I always say I forgot I knew that, or you have to be reminded how important that is. So anyhow, Robin, we could talk to you all day. Where would people find more of your brilliance?
So we've got a few free resources over at fearless.biz. So
Okay.
just several downloads. You can go and grab a copy of Take Your Shot, which is the blue book behind me.
Yes.
Obviously, if
Yes.
you grab hold of a copy of Take Your Shot, we would love a review on Amazon because it just helps other people to find the book. Or you can just Google Robin Waite. So it's Waite, Waite with an E on the end of it. And you'll find my LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all of the good stuff out there.
Yes, and I was just generously gifted Take Your Shot, and I'm into it. And boy, oh boy, I'm really enjoying it. So I can't wait to brag you up and sort of get you out there and give you a testimonial on that. It's really, I think they say in your country, stellar stuff. Yes, it's
Absolutely.
brilliant. It's brilliant. Yes, awesome. Okay, Robin, you have been fantastic. We'll make sure to put all your contacts in the show notes, and everyone else, we will see you in the next episode.